Today on the Daily Scoop podcast from the Scoop News Group. Ahead of the World Cup and the 2028 Olympics, DHS is offering grants to states and local governments for counter-drone technology. And Anduril conducts its first flight test for the Air Force's collaborative combat aircraft drone prototype. It's Monday, November 3rd, 2025. Welcome to the Daily Scoop podcast, where you'll hear the latest news and trends facing government leaders. I'm the host of the Daily Scoop podcast, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for joining me. And now let's dive into the day's top headlines. The Department of Homeland Security's non-federal government partners and communities across the U.S. can now apply for funding grants for certain counter-drone capabilities to address national security and safety threats posed by the illegal and nefarious use of unmanned aircraft systems. Officials wrote in a notice published online last week that, quote, the funding enables state, local, tribal, and territorial governments, along with first responders and public safety entities, to acquire detection and tracking technologies designed to safeguard public spaces and critical infrastructure, unquote. DHS estimates that $250 million will be obligated for the program in fiscal 2026 alone, and more money is expected to flow. Decisions about individual awards will happen between 30 and 60 days of the application submissions. DHS expects to make 12 awards with financial assistance amounts to be decided and ranging across the winner set. All projects will have a performance period of 36 months. Notably, the awardees will not be permitted to use the federal funding to purchase what's known as Enhanced Detect, Track, and Identification Systems, or DTI systems, including those that capture, record, intercept, demodulate, decrypt, or decode signals between UAS and ground control stations. Due to the significant legal restrictions, privacy concerns, and federal airspace regulations, state, local, and tribal territory entities don't currently have official authorization to employ those types of technologies. Drone threats associated with surveillance, disruption, or attacks have increased across the nation in recent years. The U.S. military is significantly expanding work and investments to deploy defensive weapons, modernize electronic warfare capabilities, enhance sensor protection, and other tools to protect its facilities in the U.S. and abroad. And with America hosting major upcoming global events, agencies and officials have been calling for coordinated efforts to more aggressively confront the risks. DHS officials wrote in the grant notice that, quote, projects will receive an effectiveness score based on related training and equipment proposed, as well as a prioritization score for projects in cities hosting events of national significance, such as the World Cup, America's 250th birthday celebration, the Olympics, and so on. Funding is allocated to projects based on the risk associated with the project location multiplied by effectiveness of the project. DHS officials also noted that this opportunity was sparked by the One Big Beautiful Bill Act signed into law by President Donald Trump in July, which included $500 million for state and local capabilities to detect, identify, track, or monitor threats from UAS. That legislation also has provisions that pledge $625 million for security and other costs related to the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and $1 billion for security planning and other costs related to the 2028 Olympics, as well as $450 million for the Operation Stone Garden grant program that focuses on U.S. border security. In other news, Anduril's prototype drone developed for the Air Force's Collaborative Combat Aircraft, or CCA, program has taken its first live flight, the service announced Friday. The company conducted the flight of the unmanned fighter jet, known as the YFQ-44A, on Friday at a test location in California, the Air Force said in a press release. Beginning live flight tests of the CCA prototype expands the program's knowledge base on flight performance, autonomous behaviors, and mission systems integration, the service noted. The announcement that Anduril has moved into the flight test stage comes after General Atomics conducted the first flight of its CCA offering in August. Both companies are vying for Increment 1 of the CCA program, which is part of the Air Force's Next Generation Air Dominance, or NGAD, family of systems. General Atomics and Anduril received contracts for the first CCA increment in 2024, while the Air Force is also working with Shield AI and RTX to provide the drone's mission autonomy. With both airframe vendors now in the next stage of the program, the Air Force is one step closer to making a final production decision for Increment 1, expected in 2026. Secretary of the Air Force Troy Mink said in a statement that, quote, "This milestone demonstrates how competition drives innovation and accelerates delivery. These flights are giving us the hard data we need to shape requirements, reduce risk, and ensure the CCA program delivers combat capability on pace and scale that keeps us ahead of the threat," unquote. The robotic wingman drones are expected to fly alongside the service's manned 6th and 5th generation aircraft to conduct a range of operations, including offensive strike and intelligence surveillance and reconnaissance. The Air Force has previously said it wants to buy up to 1,000 Increment 1 CCA drones and begin fielding them sometime before 2030. For more news at the intersection of the federal government and technology, make sure to visit fedscoop.com. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Daily Scoop podcast, available on all podcast platforms. If you've already rated the podcast on your platform of choice, thanks so much. High ratings and good reviews of the show help more people to find it. The Daily Scoop podcast is a production of the Scoop News Group in Washington, D.C. Adam Butler and Carlin Fisher help put the show together, and the entire Scoop News Group team contributes. We'll be back tomorrow with more top headlines. Until then, I'm your host, as always, Billy Mitchell. Thanks so much for listening.